So with mindfulness, it actually, even within 8 weeks, there's new neural pathways that go to when we're mindful, it's the building of new neural pathways going to these parts of the brain that I was talking to you about, where you can have the ease, you can have the clarity, you can have emotional regulation, you can be able to decide on a project and then actually have follow through. You can have working memory. There's all sorts of good things that happen here. Um, but there's this expression, what fires together wires together. And so if we're reacting all the time and constantly reacting and things are flying out of your mouth that you wish hadn't been flown out of your mouth, what happens is those are the wires that keep strengthening. And so the part of our nervous system where we are more nervous, where we are more anxious in life, gets activated a lot and again and again. But when we start responding and coming into the present moment, it builds pathways to these parts of the brain that I was just talking to you about. And also, what they have found in some of the research more recently is that it can even build gray matter in these areas. There's something called cortical age decline, which is the diminishing of cells in like the prefrontal cortex, which is one of the places I was just describing where you can have ease and peace and clarity, right? And so most people experience in life this thing called cortical age decline, which is the thinning of our brain. And so sometimes you wonder when people are older, they lose their memory, they get a little cranky, things like that. It's the thinning of the brain, everybody. But what we're finding with mindfulness practice, the research is actually showing that it's even building gray matter in these parts of the brain. It's adding this tissue, this matter to there, which is phenomenal because I don't know anything else that actually does that. And, I knew that that happened for longtime meditators. I've been meditating a very long time, and we've done studies over at UCLA looking at people's brains, and people who've been meditating for a long time, you can actually see the difference of someone who has been sitting doing this kind of practice. But what I have read more recently is even within this 8-week program called mindfulness-based stress reduction, they're starting to see an increase in gray matter there as well, which was shocking to me. So that was very exciting that you could do something for a really short period of time and make such a difference. So what happens? So you're teenagers, right? And I'm just thinking about being in this world right now, and a lot of, I would imagine, Ankita, do you experience a lot of emotion and notice your friends are nervous about stuff?
Yes, I agree. I do experience a lot of emotion sometimes, and I think that's also part of being a teenager. But, I also see that my friends and other students at my school kind of experience the same thing where we experience a lot of emotions, and sometimes it can be really overwhelming to understand what we are feeling right now. Especially during the pandemic, I have seen this happen and occur a lot of times. And I don't think it's just in teenagers. I also think this happens in adults and even children.
Yeah, and I just wanted to address that, and I love that Ankita realizes, yeah, my friends are experiencing that, my classmates, and adults too, right? So
Mhm.
we all have stuff going on, but specifically for you, there's a lot of decisions you have to make as to how you want to focus your schooling, and now you're on computers to have to study because maybe there aren't in class. There might not be classes where you might be on Zoom or something like that. So mindfulness is really, really helpful for physical stuff like pain and stress that you hold in your body, right? So, and mindfulness, they have seen that they're really, it can be really helpful for particularly stress-related conditions. So people who have stomach issues, people who have skin conditions, those are all exacerbated via stress. Um, one of the great benefits of mindfulness is it's helpful with anxiety and depression. And I would imagine, I mean, we've seen this particularly with teens. It's been really hard with the pandemic, not being able to hang out with your friends and be in school and just the normal things that you should be able to do. And, unfortunately, it just isn't working out that way at the moment. But so mindfulness could be very, very helpful to help you work with um, your stressors in a constructive way. Something about mindfulness, you slow things down a little bit and you start to have a little bit of space, and then you start realizing you can choose how you're going to respond rather than automatic pilot where it's just flying out of your mouth. And you probably aren't going to be so skillful with things flying out of your mouth. So, it is very helpful for depression and for many people with anxiety. But what I see in these classes, because I've been teaching these classes for almost 30 years, which is a pretty long time. And what I see is people tend to be happier when they start doing this practice. And it's also a way to empower yourself, because if you're thinking more clearly and focus more clearly and you're able to access a whole part of your brain that normally you're not accessing, or um, what happens is that you can make better decisions, you can make better choices. You can have some support for your goodness, rather than just reacting all the time, just trying to get through life, and where it's not so satisfying. So we know that mindfulness, as I've already said to you, it's really helpful for attention. You learn how to focus. Um, it helps with concentration, and it also increases in executive control. So that's the way of, as I was saying to you, in this part of the brain, it helps us with this self-regulation. Where you're not just throwing fits and having a really hard time and acting out a lot. And right now during this pandemic, we're seeing a lot of people acting out, a lot of adults, a lot of young people. People are very uncomfortable and are mad. And how do we work with that in a constructive way? Okay, this is how it is right now. How do we navigate in a way that's the least harmful and the most helpful? And part of why I wanted to do this with you is because I love your attitude. You just want to help people. So you go,
Yeah.
girl.
Thank you.
One last part about mindfulness here, in terms of some of the benefits, is that, um, as I told you, there's this thing called cortical age decline, where our brain starts diminishing as we get older. And so with mindfulness, as I just told you, what happens is structural and functional changes happen as I told you, there's more gray matter, there's new pathways to different parts of our brain, and so structure changes. The whole thing will change. And these areas of the brain have a lot to do with attention, emotional regulation, and being aware of your body and some of the messages it's getting, which can be very, very helpful in navigating our life. But more than anything, I think people are just happier and also feel more confident in being more skilled to navigate when things are hard. So we're not just reacting all the time. Because the more we react, everybody, the more reaction you're going to keep having, the more your mind state is going to be that way. And it takes a toll on our bodies and on our minds, and it takes a toll for each of us, but it also takes a toll for the people who care about us, for our friends and our family.